Hi, welcome to this week's CS on Air session. I'm pleased to be joined today by Genevieve Smith-Nunes from Sussex Downs College in the UK. She's a teacher of computer science and she's here with some of her students today to show us how she uses NXT Mindstorms with Enchanting in her classroom. So Genevieve, thanks very much for joining us, and I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks. Hi, basically what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at how I've used Enchanting in the classroom. But first of all, I think I need to do honours with who found it, which is some of my students. So if I just turn around and introduce you. So we're going to do this slowly so nobody gets sick. Right, guys. So tell me when you're on. Right, there they are. Cool. So Joe, if you can tell everybody, you might need to come a little bit further forward first. So basically, we teach software development and computing A-level, and with that, we have to look at sound and images and how it's stored in the computer, and that's what we're doing today. But we have these robots. If I just show you them, this is one that has been built by one of the students. So these are the original NTX Mindstorms, not the new ones. And I started in September, and there was no software for them, so we didn't actually have the software disks. They weren't installed on the machine, so we had to kind of find another way around how can we use them. And Joe, we were doing a game hack, and Joe found, if you want to explain what you found.
Yeah, well, I looked at what there was for NXTs. I started looking at like the drivers for them for my computer, and I came across something called Enchanting, and that uses the Scratch kind of interface to be able to make like little program scripts and compile it and then just easily Bluetooth it to the NXT.
So basically, and it's free because obviously the Scratch environment is actually open source, so that really helped us. The only problem is that we have to install it on our own computers because of network services, so there's a little bit of an issue there. So guys, I'll let you go back to building your robots, and I'll just go around and explain what Enchanting is. So apologies for the turning around. So basically, Enchanting is a software. It's very Scratch-like, and I'm just going to share my presentation now so you can see. And this is available also on the link attached, and it's got some extra stuff on it to help you. So Enchanting is from a group to help you build and use the NTX Mindstorms in a different way without using the software. So basically, it looks very much like Scratch, so you can you can progress very easily. The install for Windows is super easy, and now they've modified it for the Mac because we had to do some command line changes when we initially installed the old version, but the new version now comes with absolutely everything, which is really good, and also some sample projects as well, which makes it easier. So let's have a look why we're using Enchanting and not Mindstorms. So here's the Mindstorm environment that you get when you have the software. If you have the software, obviously I didn't. And then you can see Scratch here, and then you can see Enchanting. You can see, apart from the name, it's very similar. And there's some extra little blocks here, which you can see. And what that does, it allows students to kind of transfer very easily. But it does work very, very simply once you plug it in, or Bluetooth, as Joe was saying earlier. So from a teacher perspective, it's very easy, and also because it's free, it means that people can download it, whereas this, you have to purchase the software. So that's quite expensive, on top of how expensive the actual robots are. I mean, the new robots are really, really expensive. So basically, it's a guy called Clinton Blackmore is the head of SABRE, which is the South Alberta Robotics Enthusiasts. I think that's where they get the E from. And they built it to make it easier for people to program, because he was talking about, he really liked robotics when he was younger, and he found it really, really difficult himself to use the software that was available. So let's have a look at the code. Okay, as you can see here, you can see it's very, very similar to Scratch. It's got the same when clicked, but it's got these extra options which are already pre-built in, which is the driving and then the motors. Whereas when you use Scratch, you have to load the or show the motor blocks, whereas these are already open. So, and then there's lots of resources online, and then that enable you to actually use this. And obviously, with it being open source, people are building more stuff. So people have used it for sensors. There is also now an option to use it with the Raspberry Pi, and also obviously the newer blocks. So it works on any platform, which is really good. So, and if I just go back to me, and we'll be able to see, there we go. Am I back on? Yep, cool. So what I'm going to show you now is on my laptop what it actually looks like. So here we go. So we've been doing sound today, and here you can see my laptop. And what we've got here is a little program that actually reacts to sound. And I'm going to show you the robot. You might not be able to see this because it's really, really kind of light on the thing. So it's got a very little sensor here, which is the sound sensor, which is this one. And then there's what we've done is we've drawn a little dot, and it reacts to the sound, whether it's really loud and then it goes across, or it's really quiet. So you can see if I carry on talking, you might pick up the little arrow that's going across. And this uses this program here. It's easy. It's not installed on this machine, so I have to use my laptop. So you can see it's very, very simple. There's no in terms of changing from scratch to this, you'd have absolutely no issues whatsoever. So why do I use it in the classroom? Okay, so basically, part of the A-level computing, you have to look at sound and data representation and how it works and how it's stored, compression and frequencies and things like that. So by using the robots, they can actually then see how you would actually really input that data into the robot, and then how it's actually going to work. So what we're doing at the moment is just sound, and then next week we're going to move on to using sound and image, and how they have to work out the pseudocode for it. So they're going to have to work out the program that would make that work, and then we're going to link that to all of the key items that are required for the exam board, so that when they come to remember it, they've actually got some kind of physical memory of like robots and other things like that. So in terms of what's available in help, you'll see that there's a kind of website behind me, and that's enchanting.robotclub.ab.ca, and I'll just put that in the chat so we can add that on. And what that is, that's the website that that they've created specifically for the Enchanting software, and it allows you to have a look at videos that they've done. It's got like a forum, and you will be able to then sort of have a go at doing some of the stuff yourself. They've also got loads of pre-built projects. So like, for example, it actually has the sprites in there for you and all of the code. So from that, it makes it much easier to see the how the software works. And then you can then actually transform that and say to them, well, okay, here we've got a Scratch one. How would we do that in Python? Which is what they're going to have to do next week. So how are they going to make the sound? How are they going to make... Oh, and obviously you can't control the robot just yet. You can get the drivers, but that's using Java. So we're going to have a go at doing that much later when we're a little bit more confident with using the Java language. So, and also my little son's 7, and I've done them with him because he uses Scratch. And obviously there's a little bit of a literacy issue and also a conceptual issue of sound and files. But I found that he can use it if he has an adult actually kind of doing it with him properly, whereas the guys can kind of, they're working out and going, they're thinking, well, actually it hasn't got any suspension on it, how are we going to get that to work? So they are really, really useful. They're incredibly expensive. I found them in my cupboard when I started work, so I thought I need to use them because it's a waste of a resource, really. So and if you, I'll see if I can, it'll go full screen. So you can see the video behind me. He's looking at like a very simple project, and I've turned the sound off so you can see. So this is Clinton Blackmore, and he is one of the developers at the Sabre Group. And because it's open source, then you're allowed to kind of build anything that's in the Scratch environment, and you can change it yourself. There is actually a brand new one, not necessarily for the NTX Mindstorms, and it's called Snap. And that's actually an in-browser kind of Scratch environment. I just need to double check whether it was HTML5 or whether it was Flash-based, because that's the only thing when you're using lots of Apple products. So like, for example, we have all the I've got my own iPad and I use that in the classroom to broadcast to the television, but not to this. That's the only problem. So as you can see with the blocks here, it's very, very simple. And then you can teach them things like how the variables are and how you can get like, so you can see here that the program, so how would you then convert that into a, let me just see if I can tilt it up so you can see a bit better. Yeah, right, okay, cool. So, right. So basically with the sort of Scratch-like environment, it allows you to do very, very sort of complex kind of algorithms, but in a simple visual way, and therefore the students can then sort of get the concept, which is really, really important before they start trying to program it. So if you don't understand the sort of computer science concept, then you're just doing it, you're not learning it, and that's kind of why I try and do these kind of physical representations of stuff. And then from that, they can then say, well, actually, how would that look if I coded that in Java? How would that look if I coded it in Python, for example? So that's kind of why I use them in terms of the environment itself and how we actually engage with the robots. So that they're not just doing kind of theory all the time and not just doing programming, they need to link the two together. So that's why I use Enchanting. And Clinton Backmore, if you've got any questions, he's really, really helpful. You can go and speak to the forum. There's lots of stuff going on in kind of Germany and in Spain. There's quite a few really good developers that are doing it there. There's also a really, really good, now this is, I'm not sure how you pronounce the university. There's Monash University, and they use this as part of their robotic course at university. So they've actually incorporated Enchanting directly into their robotics course, and they have an ebook which haven't quite got the link with me yet, but I'll put the link on. I'll give the link so it'll be added to the next stuff, and that's really, really useful. So it's got loads of challenges and things like that, because that was one of the things I was looking at. How can I challenge my students to actually use the robots independently, as opposed to me going, here's the code, copy it. But that's quite useful as well. You need to give them a starting point. So in terms of the presentation that's on the slideshow, all of the extra how-tos, which is like what you get in Scratch, are available there. So you'll be able to have a starting point. You don't need to, in some sense, you don't even need to know how to code. You just need to have the robot and the Enchanting, plug it in and copy the software, and then you'll be able to actually get an idea of how it's going to work. So you do need to, the only problem is you have to check if the school has them, because you have to flash the firmware. So you have to delete the NTX Lego Mindstorm software and install the driver from Lehos. So you'd have to make sure that you are on. I've got a sheet that I'm going to link up. I just need to modify it because it's got the new install details on it. So to make sure that's got Windows and Mac availability. So that would be one of the things I would double check, that you're allowed to do that. To be quite honest, it makes it easier using Enchanting. And obviously they're building and developing and creating new stuff all the time. Because when I first installed it, as I said, we had to go in the command line to get the path directory set. Now it just completely installs. So there's absolutely no problem with that, and that's just like within sort of 2 months. So like here you can see behind is like the sort of sumo battle, and obviously it's using light and distance sensors, and so it's quite interesting to see how you can use what you're teaching at a theoretical level in a very practical way. That's kind of how I learn. If I was just reading a book, I don't think I'd actually absorb all of the data correctly. Whereas like if I kind of did the theory, then had a go at doing some robots or something like that, then you'd be able to see actually the practical application of using the actual NTX Mindstorms in a sort of computer science way, as opposed to let's just play with some robots, which is a lot of what a lot of people are a bit like, I don't really know how to use them in the classroom because they don't really know the theory behind it. And I think sometimes you have to make sure that you have the theory of why you're doing it, so that people understand, certainly the students understand the benefit of using the robots against just having a play with them and just, oh, have a go. So it's quite important that you make sure that when you are delivering it, you either deliver it, let's just have a mess around and see how it works, or that you apply it directly to like whatever examples you're using or whatever criteria you're using. I mean, it'd be really useful to use them all the way through so the students get very used to them in terms of the kind of, secondary school, like kind of grade sort of 7. I probably wouldn't do grade 7 with it, maybe like sort of grade 9 upwards, or maybe grade up, all the way up to A level, which is, we have grade 13. If it's equivalent, I think it would be the better description. So in terms of me using it, that's where it kind of fits in. It doesn't fit in with other stuff, but it does fit in very much in the data representation and outputs, hardware and devices. So it's got a very sort of set kind of area and parameters, which is quite useful when you need to be able to, how can I use that in the classroom? How can I justify this is part of computer science? So that's kind of why I use it. So, and one of the other things that you can do is it's very similar to Scratch, where you can draw little sprites on the actual block, and you can put like eyes on it, and you can get it to follow the kind of the dark light, and it changes its eyes like that. But we haven't installed that one yet because I want the students to work that out for themselves. So, but it's quite simple, very easy to install. You'd have to probably just speak to your network managers because you have to install the drivers, and that would be one of the little things. But in terms of help files on the Enchanting website, if I just load it up, everything is on the actual website page. As soon as you go into there, it's got the little help video that we've just kind of seen briefly behind us, and then it goes straight into how to download it. It's very, very simple. And then you can also kind of have a look and say, sorry, let me just, and it gives you kind of like a little build idea. So it's got little pictures of the blocks that you might need, but it doesn't give you the code, which is quite nice. And then this is what I've added to the back of my presentation on slideshow. You have to bear with me a second. And I'll just open it. Right. So, and these are quite helpful if you've used Scratch before and used your own Scratch cards. So these are the Scratch cards that are added to the back of mine. So you can see, very simple. And other than that, it's very simple to use, and it's quite useful, but very specifically for data representation and hardware and devices. So, and then maybe if you were looking at some, if you could add in some sort of AI and decision, then you could link it into that. So it's quite nice that it matches some of the actual computer science theory of the A-levels that we do. And that's what I have to say in regards to Enchanting.
Great. Thanks very much, Genevieve. Just have a question. How many lessons approximately does it take for your students to start programming the robots and get them moving and get them fighting?
Joe, you'd be better answering. Apart from the install issue, which is always a little bit of a problem.
Well, we got them like smashing into each other within a 2-hour.
Yeah, so basically they did like a battle without any of the help cards either. I just set them free. They had a game hack challenge that we had for 3 hours, and they were allowed to use the robots, but they weren't allowed to use any of the Enchanting cards. So they had to work out the program themselves. So within 2 hours they built and got them battling. I mean, it was quite funny actually. And obviously now when we go through and show it properly, then we'll be able to do a proper robot battle, which is what we're doing next week.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much, Genevieve, and thanks to the students who have joined you today. Just to remind the people who are watching, CS on Air is basically our way of having expert teachers and organisations that we're working with just to share their ideas and tips for teaching CS in the classroom. So I'd like to thank you, Genevieve. I hope some other people watching find this useful. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks with Genevieve again, and you're going to be talking about Boolean algebra, is that right? And Greenfoot and Java.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Okay, so those will be advertised on the Education on Air website, and this video will be available on youtube.com/edu@google following the end of the Hangout. So thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye.